All stories posted on our channel are stories from our subscribers and created by us based on real events we've experienced and witnessed. We post new stories every day for your entertainment, that we hope you enjoy them. Thank you.
There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes from lying next to someone who doesn't want to touch you. I know this because I lived it for 387 days. I counted every single one of them, lying awake in the darkness of our bedroom in suburban Nashville, listening to my wife breathe, wondering what I had done wrong, wondering when she had stopped loving, wondering if she ever had. My name is Ryan Michael Porter, and I'm 36 years old. I was born and raised in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, about 30 miles southeast of Nashville. My father was a high school football coach. My mother was a nurse at the VA hospital, and I grew up believing in all the things good Southern boys are supposed to believe: hard work, family, faith, and the sanctity. I met my wife, Megan Elizabeth Dawson, at Vanderbilt University in the fall of 2009. We were both juniors, me studying mechanical engineering, her studying business administration. We met at a tailgate party before a football game, introduced by mutual friends who thought we would hit it off. They were right. From the moment I saw Megan, with her honey blonde hair and her warm brown eyes and her laugh that seemed to light up the entire parking, I was captivated. She was beautiful, yes, but it was more than. She was smart and ambitious and had a way of making everyone around her feel special. When she talked to you, you felt like you were the only person in the world. We started dating 2 weeks after we met, and by the time we graduated in 2011, I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. I proposed on New Year's Eve 2012, on the rooftop of the Hermitage Hotel in downtown Nashville, with fireworks exploding over the city. She said yes before I even finished the question. We got married in June 2013, at a country club outside of Franklin. It was a beautiful wedding, 200 guests, a live band, a 3-tier cake that Megan's mother had insisted on. My father gave a toast that made everyone cry, and Megan's father welcomed me into the family with a handshake and a warning. You take care of my little girl, Ryan. She's the best thing that ever happened to any of us. I promised I would, and for a long time, I kept that promise. The first few years of our marriage were everything I had hoped. We bought a starter home in Brentwood, a suburb south of Nashville, known for its good schools and family-friendly neighborhood. I got a job as a mechanical engineer at Nissan's Smyrna plant, while Megan worked her way up the corporate ladder at a healthcare consulting firm in downtown Nashville. We talked about having kids someday, but we were in no rush. We were young, we were in love, and we had all the time in the world, or so I thought. The change started gradually, so slowly that I almost didn't notice it at first. Around 2018, Megan started working later hours, coming home exhausted and distracted. She would check her phone constantly, sometimes stepping out of the room to take calls she said were work stuff. She stopped wanting to go out on date nights, preferring instead to stay home and decompress. I told myself it was just the stress of her job. She had been promoted to senior consultant, which meant more responsibility and more pressure. It made sense that she would be tired, that she would need more space. I tried to be supportive, picking up more of the household chores, cooking dinners she often didn't eat, giving her back rubs she barely acknowledged. And then, in September 2021, the intimacy stopped. I remember the exact night it happened. I had come home from work early, planning to surprise Megan with a romantic dinner. I had bought flowers, candles, a bottle of her favorite wine. I had spent 2 hours cooking her favorite meal, chicken parmesan with homemade marinara sauce. I had even put on the playlist we had danced to at our wedding. When Megan walked through the door, she looked at the setup, and her face just fell. Not with joy or surprise or gratitude, but with something that looked almost like dread. "Ryan," she said, "I'm really tired. Can we do this another night?" "Of course," I said, hiding my disappointment. "No problem." We ate dinner in near silence, Megan barely touching her food, her eyes fixed on her phone. Afterwards, she said she was going to take a shower and go to bed early. I cleaned up the kitchen, put away the leftovers, and joined her in bed around 10 o'clock. She was already under the covers, her back to me, the lights off. "Hey," I whispered, sliding in next to her and placing my hand on her hip. "You okay?" She stiffened at my touch. "I'm just tired, Ryan. Can we just sleep?" "Of course. But we haven't been together in a while. I miss you." She pulled away from my hand. I said I'm tired. I lay there in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, feeling the distance between us like a physical barrier. That was the last time I tried to initiate intimacy with my wife, and for the next 387 days, she never once reached out to me. At first I thought it was temporary, a rough patch, nothing more. All marriages go through them, right? I tried to give her space, tried to be patient, tried to focus on the other aspects of our relationship. We still talked, still ate meals together, still went through the motions of married life. We just didn't touch. Weeks turned into months. I started sleeping in the guest room sometime, telling myself it was because I didn't want to disturb her with my snoring, but really, it was because lying next to her, feeling her coldness, was too painful to bear. I suggested marriage counseling. She said she didn't have time. I suggested a vacation, just the two of us, to reconnect. She said she couldn't take time off work. I suggested talking to her doctor, in case there was something physical going on. She said she was fine, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. Some couples don't have sex that often, she told me one night when I pressed the issue. It's normal. You're being dramatic. Was I being dramatic? I started to doubt maybe this was just what marriage looked like after 8 years. Maybe my expectations were unrealistic. Maybe I was the problem. I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects, volunteering for weekend shifts. If I couldn't find fulfillment in my marriage, at least I could find it in a career. By the spring of 2022, I had been promoted to senior engineer, with a team of 6 reporting to. It was a hollow victory. More money, more responsibility, but no one at home to share it with. And then, on a Tuesday evening in late October 2022, everything changed. I came home from work to find Megan sitting at the kitchen table, her face pale, her hands trembling. There was something on the table in front of her, a white plastic stick that I recognized immediately, a pregnancy test. "Ryan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I'm pregnant." I stood frozen in the doorway, my briefcase still in my hand, my brain unable to process what I was hearing. Pregnant? But how? It was a stupid question. I knew how pregnancy worked, but the word how wasn't really asking about biology. It was asking about us. About the fact that we hadn't been intimate in over a year, about the mathematical impossibility of what she was telling me. Megan's face crumpled, and she started to cry. "I need your help, Ryan," she sobbed. "Please, I need you to help me." I set down my briefcase and walked slowly to the table. I looked at the pregnancy test, at the 2 pink lines that confirmed what she had said. Then I looked at my wife, this woman I had loved for 13 years. This woman I had built a life with. This woman who was now carrying a child that could not possibly be mine. "Whose is it?" I asked, my voice calm and flat, almost unrecognizable to my own ear. "Ryan, please. Whose is it?" She looked at me, her eyes red and swollen, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." And in that moment, everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, my future, all of it shattered into a million pieces. The next few hours are a blur in my memory, like a dream that doesn't quite make sense. I remember sitting down at the kitchen table across from me. I remember her crying, apologizing, trying to reach for me. I remember pulling away from her touch, the same way she had pulled away from mine for the past year. I remember asking questions, and I remember her answers. His name was Derek Hayes. He was a financial analyst at her company, someone she had worked with on several projects over the past 2 years. The affair had started in the summer of 2020, 3 months before she stopped being intimate. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she said, as if that made it better. "We were working late and we started talking. It just happened. It just happened," I repeat. "For over a year." I know how it sounds, but I was confused, Ryan. Our marriage I wasn't happy. I felt like you didn't see me anymore, like I was just a roommate to you. I stared at her in disbelief. "I didn't see you? Megan? I planned romantic dinners. I suggested vacations. I begged you to go to counseling. How is that not seeing you?" "That's not what I mean. It's more than that. I don't know how to explain it." "Try." She took a shaky breath. "Derek made me feel alive again. He made me feel wanted, special. When I was with him, I felt like myself for the first time in years. And when you were with me, I felt trapped. I'm sorry, Ryan, but it's the truth. I felt like I was suffocating." The words hit me like physical blows. Trapped. Suffocating. These were the words my wife used to describe our marriage. The marriage I had thought was worth saving. The marriage I had been trying desperately to fix for over. "So all those times you said you were tired," I said slowly. "All those nights you pushed me away. You were saving yourself for." She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I stood up from the table, my legs unsteady beneath me. I needed to get out of this room, out of this house. Away from this woman who had become a stranger to me. "Where are you going?" Megan asked. "I don't know." "Ryan, please. We need to talk about this. We need to figure out what to do." I turned to look at her. "What to do?" "You're pregnant with another man's child, Megan. What exactly is there to figure out?" I don't know. That's why I need your help. I don't know what to do." "You want my help?" I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "You've been lying to me for over a year. You've been sleeping with another man in our bed. Not in our bed. Never in our bed." "Oh well, that makes it so much better. Ryan, please. Do you love him?" The question hung in the air between. Megan's face twisted with something. Guilt, fear, maybe even a flicker of something like hope. "I don't know," she finally said. "I think I might." I nodded slowly, absorbing this final blow. My wife loved another man. She was carrying his child, and she was asking me for help. "I'm going to stay at a hotel tonight," I said. "I need time to think. Ryan, don't leave. Not like this." "I'm not leaving, Megan. I'm giving myself space. You've had a year to figure out what you want. Give me at least one night." I grabbed my keys and walked out the door, leaving her sitting at the kitchen table, still crying, still holding that pregnancy test. I drove aimlessly for hours. wandering the streets of Nashville without any destination, and I ended up at a bar in East Nashville, a dive called the Five Spot that I had been to a few times with coworkers. I sat at the bar and ordered a bourbon, then another and another. The bartender, a grizzled man in his 60s with a gray ponytail, must have seen something in my face. "Rough night?" he asked. "You could say that. Want to talk about it?" I shook my head. "Just keep the drinks coming." He did. I stayed at that bar until closing time, drinking more than I had in years, trying to drown the images that kept playing in my mind. Megan and Derek, together, laughing, touching, sharing the intimacy she had denied me. Her face when she told me she felt trapped. The pregnancy, those two pink lines that had destroyed my... I called a cab to take me to a hotel, a Hampton Inn near the airport, anonymous and impersonal. I checked in, went to my room, and collapsed on the bed without even taking off my shoes. I didn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what had happened. How had I not seen it? How had I missed the signs? Looking back, they were everywhere. The late nights, the secret phone calls, the emotional distance, the rejection of any physical intimacy. I had been so focused on fixing our marriage that I hadn't considered the possibility that Megan had already checked out, and now she was pregnant with Derek's child, and she wanted my help. What did that even mean? Did she want me to raise another man's baby? To pretend the child was mine? To forgive her affair and carry on as if nothing had happened? I couldn't do that. I knew myself well enough to know that. Whatever love I had felt for Megan, it had been poisoned by this betrayal. I couldn't look at her the same way. I couldn't trust her. And I certainly couldn't raise a child that would be a daily reminder of her infidelity. But what was the alternative? Divorce. After 9 years of marriage, after everything we had built together, the house, the careers, the shared friends, and memories. It seemed impossible, unthinkable, and yet, here I was, lying in a hotel room at 3 in the morning, thinking I must have finally drifted off around dawn, because the next thing I knew, my phone was ringing with a call from... I let it go to voicemail, then another call, then a series of text messages. "Please come home. We need to talk. I'm so sorry, Ryan. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. Please don't give up on us." I read the messages and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a vast emptiness where my feelings for her used to be. I got up, took a shower, and checked out of the hotel. Then I drove to the only place I could think of, my parents' house in Murfreesboro. My parents still lived in the same house I had grown up in, a modest ranch on a quiet street near the elementary school where I had learned. My father had retired from coaching a few years earlier, and my mother had cut back to part-time at the hospital. They spent most of their time now tending their garden, going to church, and spoiling their 3 grandchildren, my sister's kids, who lived in Chattanooga. I hadn't told them I was coming. I just showed up on their doorstep at 9 in the morning, unshaven and red-eyed, still wearing the clothes I had worn to work the day before. My mother opened the door and took one look at me. "Ryan, honey, what's wrong?" I opened my mouth to answer, but no words came. Instead, to my horror, I started to cry. My mother pulled me into her arms, the way she had when I was a child, and held me while I sobbed. My father appeared behind her, his face creased with concern. "What happened?" he asked. "Is it Megan? Is she okay?" I couldn't answer. I just stood there in my mother's embrace, crying like I hadn't cried since I was a boy, letting out all the pain and confusion and grief that I had been holding inside. Eventually, they led me inside and sat me down at the kitchen table. My mother made coffee while my father sat across from me, his hand on my arm, waiting patiently for me to compose myself. When I finally told them what had happened, the affair, the pregnancy, Megan's confession, their faces went through a progression of emotion: shock, anger, sadness, and finally, a kind of resigned acceptance. "I always liked Megan," my mother said quietly. "I thought she was good for you." "So did I. What are you gonna do?" "I don't know. I can't think straight right." My father, who had been silent throughout my story, finally spoke. "Son, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to listen carefully." I looked at him, this man who had taught me everything I knew about being a man, about honor and integrity, and doing the right thing, even when it's hard. "What you're going through right now is one of the hardest things a man can face," he said. "Betrayal by the person you trusted most. It's going to hurt for a long time, maybe forever. But you need to make a decision, and you need to make it with a clear head." "What decision? Whether to stay or go?" "How can I stay, Dad? She's having another man's baby." "I'm not saying you should stay. I'm saying you need to think about it carefully before you decide. Talk to a lawyer, figure out what your options are, and whatever you do, don't make any permanent decisions while you're this upset." It was good advice, practical, measured, the kind of advice my father had always given, but part of me didn't want practical advice. Part of me wanted him to tell me what to do, to make the decision, to save me from the impossible choice I was facing. "What would you do?" I asked. "If Mom had done this to you?" My parents exchanged a look, one of those looks that couples share after decades, communicating entire conversations without a single word. I'd like to think I'd fight for my father's, but honestly, I don't know. What Megan did, it's not just cheating. It's a year of lies, of rejection, of making you feel like you were the problem. That's not something you can just forgive and forget. So you think I think you should do what's right for you. Not for Megan, not for her family, not even for us, for you. I stayed at my parents' house for 3 days. During that time, I didn't answer any of Megan's calls or texts. I needed space to think, to process, to figure out what I wanted. My mother fed me home-cooked meals and didn't ask any questions. My father took me fishing at Percy Priest Lake, something we hadn't done together in years. We didn't talk much, just sat in the boat, watching our lines, enjoying the silence and the fall colors on the trees. On the 3rd day, I called a lawyer. His name was Thomas Green, a partner at a family law firm in Nashville that a coworker had recommended. I made an appointment to see him the following week. Then I called Megan. She answered on the first ring. Ryan? Oh my God, I've been so worried. Are you okay? I'm fine. I'm at my parents' house. I tried calling you 100 times. I know. I needed space. I understand. But Ryan, we really need to talk. Can you come home? I'll be home tomorrow. But we're not going to talk the way you're thinking. I've hired a lawyer, Meg. I'm filing for divorce. Silence on the other. Then, in a voice I barely recognized, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. Ryan, please. I know I made a mistake, but we can work through this. We've been together for 13 years. Doesn't that mean anything? It meant everything to me. That's why this hurts so much. So you're just going to give up? Just like that? Give up? I felt a flash of the first real emotion I'd experienced since the confession. I didn't give up, Meg. You did. You gave up on our marriage the moment you decided to sleep with Derek. You gave up every night you rejected me while running to him. You gave up when you got pregnant with his child and then asked me for help. Don't you dare accuse me of giving up. More silence. Then, quietly, what about the baby? That's not my concern anymore. Talk to Derek. I'm sure he'll be thrilled to step up. Derek doesn't know yet. Then I suggest you tell him, because in about 6 months, he's going to be a father. I hung up before she could respond. I met with Thomas Green the following Tuesday. His office was in a high-rise in downtown Nashville, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Cumberland River. He was a distinguished man in his 50s, with silver hair and the kind of calm, reassuring presence that I imagined was useful in his line of work. Mr. Porter, he said, shaking my hand. Thank you for coming in. Please, have a seat. I sat across from his desk and told him my story, the same story I had told my parents, but this time with an eye toward the legal implications. When I finished, Green nodded thoughtfully. First of all, I'm sorry you're going through this. No one deserves what your wife did to you. Thank you. Now, let's talk about your options. Tennessee is an equitable distribution state, which means that in a divorce, marital assets are divided fairly, though not necessarily equal. Given the circumstances, specifically your wife's infidelity, you may be able to argue for a larger share of the assets. I don't care about the money. I just want out. I understand, but let me give you some advice. Don't make decisions about money emotional. You may feel that way now, but in 6 months or a year, when the dust has settled, you might feel different. What about the house? Who's on the deed? Both of us. We bought it together in 2014. Then it's marital property. You'll either have to sell it and split the proceeds, or one of you will have to buy out the other. What about the baby? Green paused. That's a complicated question. Legally, if your wife gives birth while you're still married, you would be presumed to be the father. But it's not my child. Doesn't matter. Tennessee law presumes that any child born during a marriage is the child of the husband. You would have to actively disestablish paternity through a legal process, typically involving DNA testing. I felt sick. So if I don't do that, I could be on the hook for child support for a kid that isn't mine? Theoretically, yes. That's why it's important to get ahead of this. If you file for divorce now, and the divorce is finalized before the baby is born, the paternity presumption wouldn't apply. How long does a divorce take in Tennessee? In cases where both parties agree on the terms, as little as 60 days. If there are disputes about property, alimony, or other issues, it can take much longer. I did the math in my head. Megan had just found out she was pregnant, which meant she was probably about 4 to 6 weeks along. If we moved quickly, we could be divorced before the baby was. I want to proceed, I said, as fast as possible. Understood. I'll draw up the paperwork and have it ready for you to review by the end of the week. I left Green's office feeling something I hadn't felt since this whole nightmare began, a sense of control. I was taking action. I was moving forward. Whatever happened next, I wasn't just sitting around waiting for my wife to decide my fate. I drove back to Brentwood and pulled into the driveway of the house I had called home for 8 years. Megan's car was, which meant she was inside. I took a deep breath, steeled myself, and went in. She was waiting for me in the living room, sitting on the couch we had picked out together at a furniture store in Franklin. She looked terrible, pale, drawn, with dark circles under her eyes. Ryan, she said, standing up. You came back. I came to get some of my things. I'm going to stay at a hotel until we figure out the living situation. You don't have to do that. This is your house too. I know. But I can't be here right now. I can't be around you. She flinched as if I had slapped her. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But can't we at least try to work this out? Work what out, Megan? You're having another man's baby. There's nothing to work out. But I love you, Ryan. I know that sounds crazy after everything I've done, but it's true. I love you. I stared at her, trying to find something, anything, that resembled the woman I had married. But all I saw was a stranger who had lied to me, rejected me, betrayed me in the most intimate way possible. If you loved me, I said slowly, you wouldn't have done what you did. You wouldn't have spent a year making me feel like there was something wrong with you were sneaking around with another man. That's not love, Meg. That's cruelty. I didn't mean to be cruel. I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted. Do you know what you want now? She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything I needed to know. I want to try to make this work, she finally said. I want us to go to counseling, to talk to someone who can help us figure this out. And Derek? What about him? I told him about the baby. He wants me to keep it. He wants to be part of its life. And do you want that? Another hesitation. I don't know. I haven't decided. I laughed. A harsh, bitter sound that surprised even you haven't decided. After everything that's happened, you still can't make a choice. You want to have your cake and eat it too. You want Derek and the baby and me and the marriage and all of it. Well, I'm making the choice for you. I'm done. I'm filing for divorce. Ryan, please. The papers will be ready by the end of the week. I suggest you get a lawyer. I went upstairs to our bedroom, the bedroom where I had spent so many nights alone, wondering what I had done wrong, and started packing a suitcase. Clothes, toiletries, a few books. Just enough to get by until divorce was finalized. Megan followed me, standing in the doorway, watching me pack. What about the house? She asked. We'll figure it out. Either we sell it or one of us buys out the other. I don't really care which. And our friends? Our families? What do we tell them? The truth. You cheated on me, got pregnant by another man, and I decided to end the marriage. You don't have to be so harsh. I stopped packing and turned to face her. Harsh? You want to talk about harsh? Try lying in bed next to your wife for wanting to touch her, wanting to connect with, and being rejected every single time. Try feeling like you're not good enough, not attractive enough, not man enough for the woman you. Try finding out that the whole time she was rejecting, she was giving herself to someone else. That's harsh, Meg. What I'm doing is just honest. I zipped up the suitcase and brushed past her, heading for the stairs. Ryan, she called after me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I stopped at the front door and looked back at her one last time. I know you are, I said, but sorry doesn't fix what you broke. I walked out the door and didn't look back. The next few weeks were a blur of legal documents, phone calls, and difficult conversations. I moved into an extended stay hotel near my office, a place called the Town Place Suites that catered to business travelers. It was clean and functional, with a small kitchenette and a separate bedroom, and it gave me the space I needed to figure out my next move. Thomas Green worked quickly. By the end of the first week, he had drafted a petition for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences, though he made sure to document Megan's adultery in case we needed it for leverage negotiations. Some spouses get difficult when they realize what they stand to lose, he explained. Having evidence of infidelity can be useful if she tries to make unreasonable demands. Megan, to her credit, didn't fight the divorce. She hired her own lawyer, a woman named Patricia Sullivan, and within a few weeks we had hammered out the basic terms. We would sell the house and split the proceeds, each keep our own retirement accounts, and go our separate ways with no alimony. The one sticking point was the timing. Megan wanted to wait until after the baby was born to finalize the divorce. She said she was still processing and needed time to figure out her next steps. Absolutely not, I told Green. I'm not going to be listed as the father on that birth certificate. I understand. Let me talk to her lawyer. After some back and forth, Megan agreed to expedite the process. We would finalize the divorce within 90 days, well before her due date. The hardest part was telling people. I started with my sister, Rachel, who lived in Chattanooga with her husband and 3 kids. She was 5 years younger than me and had always looked up to me as the stable, successful older brother who had his life. You're getting divorced? She said when I told her. What happened? I gave her the abbreviated version. Megan had an affair. She was pregnant. I was leaving. Rachel was silent for a long moment. Then, that bitch. Rachel? I'm sorry, Ryan, but I never really liked her. She always seemed so cold, like she was always calculating something. I just didn't want to say anything because you seemed happy. I thought I was happy. Do you need anything? Money? A place to stay? The kids would love to see their Uncle Ryan. I'm okay. I just need time. Well, if you change your mind, my door is always open. And Ryan, you're going to get through this. You're the strongest person. Telling my friends was harder. Megan and I had a shared social circle. Couples we had known since college. Neighbors we had become close with over the years. I didn't want to badmouth Megan but I also didn't want to lie about why we were splitting up. In the end, I settled on a simple explanation. Megan and I are getting divorced. She was unfaithful, and I can't move past it. The reactions varied. Some people were supportive, expressing sympathy and offering to help however they could. Others were awkward, not knowing what to say, clearly uncomfortable with the messiness of divorce. A few, mostly Megan's closer friends, seemed to take her side, suggesting that maybe I should give her another chance, that marriages go through rough patches, that people make mistakes. It's not a rough patch, I told one, a woman named Stephanie who had been Megan's college roommate. She had a year-long affair and got pregnant. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Stephanie didn't have a response to that. Work was a refuge. My job at Nissan required intense focus, analyzing designs, troubleshooting problems, managing my team. And that focus gave me a break from the chaos of my personal. My colleagues knew something was going on, but they didn't pry. Southern culture has a way of respecting privacy, even while offering support. "You need anything, you let me know," said my supervisor, a gruff older engineer named Bill Thompson. "I've been through a divorce myself. It gets better." "Thanks, Bill. And take some time off if you need it. Your work will be here when you get back." I didn't take time off. I needed the structure, the routine, the sense of purpose that work provided. Without it, I might have fallen apart. About a month after I moved out, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered, expecting a telemarketer. "Is this Ryan Porter?" "Yes. Who is this?" "My name is Derek Hayes. I think we need to talk." I almost hung up. Every instinct told me to end the call, to refuse to engage with the man who had destroyed my marriage. But something, curiosity or a desire for closure, made me stay on the line. "Talk about what?" I asked. "About Megan. About the situation. There's nothing to talk about. You slept with my wife, got her pregnant, and now I'm divorcing her. What else is there to say? I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but I think there are some things you should know." I was standing in my hotel room, looking out the window at the Nashville skyline. I didn't want to have this conversation, but I also didn't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what Derek Hayes had to say. "Fine," I said. "Talk." There was a pause. Then Derek said, "I want you to know that I didn't set out to have an affair with your wife. I'm not that kind of person. I was in a relationship when we met, a long-term relationship that wasn't working. Megan and we just connected. We were working on a project together, spending long hours in the office, and things just happened. Things just happened." That's what Megan said too. Funny how affairs just happen to people. I know how it sounds. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just trying to explain. Explain what? That you couldn't keep your hands off another man's wife? That it wasn't just about sex. I care about Megan. I might even love her. And when she told me she was pregnant, I was terrified, but I was also happy. I want to be a father. I want to raise this child. I felt a cold fury building in my chest. This man, this stranger who had taken everything from me, was now talking about raising a family, my wife. "Then congratulations," I said. "You got what you wanted." It's not that simple. Megan's confused. She doesn't know what she wants. One minute she's talking about keeping the baby. The next she's talking about other options. Other options? She's talked about ending the pregnancy. I was silent. Whatever I thought about Megan, whatever anger I felt toward her, the idea of her terminating a pregnancy was something I hadn't considered. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I think you might be the only person who can talk to her. She respects you, Ryan. She's devastated about what happened to your marriage. If you told her to keep the baby, you want me to convince my wife to keep your baby? I know it's a lot to ask. It's not a lot to ask. It's insane. You slept with my wife for a year, got her pregnant, destroyed my marriage, and now you want me to help you become a father? What planet are you living on? Ryan, please. I'm not asking for me. I'm asking for the baby. It didn't ask to be brought into this situation. It doesn't deserve to be discarded because the adults made bad decisions." I stood there, phone in hand, trying to process what I was hearing. Derek Hayes was asking me to help save his unborn child. It was absurd, insulting, and yet I couldn't stop thinking about the baby, an innocent life, caught up in a mess it had no part in creating. "I'm not going to talk to Megan," I finally said. "Whatever she decides is between her and you. I'm out of this situation." But nothing. You made your choices. She made hers. Now you both have to live with the consequences. Don't call me again. I hung up and threw the phone on the bed. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about what Derek had said, about Megan considering other options. It wasn't my business anymore. I knew that. Whatever she decided about the pregnancy was her choice, not mine. But I also knew how impulsive she could be, how prone to making decisions in the heat of the moment that she later regretted. If she ended this pregnancy, would she be able to live with it? Would she blame me for not being there to talk her through it? Did I even care? I lay in my hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with these questions until the sun came. In the end, I did nothing. I didn't call Megan. I didn't reach out to Derek. I stayed out of it, just like I said I would. 3 weeks later, I got a text from Megan. "I've decided to keep the baby. Derek and I are going to try to make it work. I hope someday you can forgive me." I read the text, then deleted it without responding. She had made her choice. Now I could make mine. The divorce was finalized on a gray Thursday morning in late June. Thomas Green and I met Megan and her lawyer at the Davidson County Courthouse in downtown. It was a brief, businesslike a few signatures, a few formalities, and just like that, 9 years of marriage were legally dissolved. Megan looked different. She was about 4 months pregnant, just starting to show, and her face had a roundness to it that I didn't recognize. She was wearing a loose sweater and jeans, no makeup, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She tried to catch my eye as we signed the papers, but I wouldn't look at her. I kept my gaze fixed on the documents, on the pen in my hand, on the table between us. When it was over, I shook hands with Green and headed for the door. Ryan, wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for everything. I know that doesn't mean much now, but I need you to know that I never meant to hurt you. I turned slowly to face her. You didn't mean to hurt me, I repeated. But you did. You hurt me more than anyone ever has. And the thing is, Megan, you could have avoided all of it. At any point in the past year, you could have been honest with me. You could have told me you were unhappy, that you wanted out, that you had feelings for someone else. We could have ended things before they got this bad. But instead, you lied. You rejected me. You made me feel like I was worthless. And now you want me to believe you didn't mean to hurt me? She was crying now, tears running down her cheeks. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought maybe if I waited long enough, I would figure out what I wanted. And did you? Figure out what you wanted? She looked at me, her eyes red and swollen. I wanted you, Ryan. I always wanted you. Derek was a mistake, a distraction. But by the time I realized that, it was too late. I was pregnant, and everything was falling apart, and I didn't know how to fix it. You wanted me, I said. But you chose him. Every night for a year you chose him. That's not confusion, Meg. That's a decision. I know. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I nodded slowly. So will I. I walked out of the courthouse and into the gray January afternoon. The air was cold, with a hint of rain, and I pulled my coat tighter around me. I was officially a divorced man. After 9 years of marriage, I was single again. The thought should have been devastating, but instead, I felt something unexpected. Relief. The weight I had been carrying for the past year, the weight of rejection, of confusion, of trying to save a marriage that couldn't be saved, was finally lifted. I was free. Free to start over. Free to build a new life without the woman who had betrayed me. I got in my car and drove to my hotel, stopping at a liquor store on the way to buy a bottle of bourbon, not to drown my sorrows, but to toast my freedom. That night, I sat in my hotel room, poured myself a glass, and raised it to the empty room. Here's to new beginnings, I said, and I meant it. The months that followed were a strange mix of liberation and loneliness. On one hand, I was free to live my life on my own terms. No more walking on eggshells around Megan, no more wondering what I had done wrong, no more lying awake at night next to a woman who didn't want me. I could do what I wanted, when I wanted, without having to consider anyone else. On the other hand, I was profoundly alone. After 9 years of marriage, I had forgotten what it was like to be single. I didn't know how to cook for one, how to fill the empty evening, how to exist without the routines and rituals that had defined my life as a married man. I threw myself into self-improvement. I started working out regularly, something I had neglected during my marriage. I joined a gym near my hotel and hired a personal trainer, a no-nonsense woman named Kelly, who pushed me to limits I didn't know I had. Within a few months, I had lost 15 pounds and gained muscle definition I hadn't had since college. I also started seeing a therapist, a psychologist named Dr. Sarah Mitchell, who specialized in divorce and relationship trauma. She had come highly recommended by Thomas Green, and from our first session, I knew she was exactly. Tell me about your marriage, she said during our first meet. What do you want to know? Whatever you want to share. Start wherever feels right. So I told her everything. The early years when Megan and I were happy, the gradual distance that had grown between us, the year of rejection, the discovery of the affair, the pregnancy, the divorce. Dr. Mitchell listened without interrupting, occasionally taking notes, her face neutral and non-judgmental. How do you feel now? She asked when I finished. Angry, relieved, confused, like I wasted 9 years of my life on someone who never really loved me. Do you believe that? That she never loved you? I don't know. I thought she did. But how can you love someone and treat them the way she treated me? People are complicated. It's possible for someone to love you and also to hurt you deeply. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. That doesn't make it. No, it doesn't. But understanding that complexity might help you move forward. If you see Megan as a pure villain, someone who never loved you, who was always planning to betray you, then you're stuck in a narrative that might not be true. And that narrative might make it harder for you to trust again. Am I supposed to trust again after what happened? Dr. Mitchell smiled gently. That's what we're going to. Over the next several months, I met with Dr. Mitchell every week. We talked about my childhood, my family, my patterns in relationships. We explored why I had been drawn to Megan, what I had been looking for, what I had been willing to overlook. You mentioned that Megan made you feel special, Dr. Mitchell said during one session. Like you were the only person in the world. What was that like for you? It was intoxicating. I had never felt that way. And when she stopped making you feel that way, when she started withdrawing, what did you do? I tried harder. I planned romantic dinners, suggested vacations, begged her to go to counseling. I thought if I could just do the right thing, she would come back to me. Did you ever consider that her withdrawal might not be about you? I paused. What do you mean? You assumed that her distance was a response to something you were doing wrong. But what if it was about her, her issues, her choices, her inability to be honest? You spent a year trying to fix a problem that wasn't yours to fix. It was a perspective I had never considered. I had been so focused on what I could do differently, I hadn't stopped to think that maybe the problem wasn't me at all. So what do I do with that? I asked. You let go of the guilt. You recognize that Megan's choices were her own, and you're not responsible. And you start to rebuild your sense of self, separate from her, separate from the marriage. It was easier said than done, but slowly, session by session, I began to feel like myself again. Not the person I had been during my marriage, trying desperately to please a woman who couldn't be pleased, but the person I had been before, confident, independent, whole. About 6 months after my divorce, I started thinking about dating again. It wasn't that I was looking for another relationship, not yet, anyway, but I was curious about what was out there, about what it would be like to meet new people after a decade of being with the same person. I signed up for a dating app, something I had never used before. The process felt surreal, swiping through photos, reading bios, trying to reduce the complexity of human connection to a few pictures and a paragraph. But it was a start. My first few dates were disasters. There was the woman who talked about her ex-husband for the entire dinner, the one who showed up looking nothing like her photos and then got offended when I seemed surprised, the one who asked within the first 5 minutes how much money I made and whether I owned property. Dating is rough out there, I told Dr. Mitchell during one of our sessions. It is, but it's also a learning experience. Every date, even the bad one, teaches you something about what you're looking for. What if I don't know what I'm looking for? Then you figure it out. Try different things. Meet different people. Let yourself be surprised. In September, about 8 months after the divorce, I met someone who surprised me. Her name was Claire Henderson. She was a veterinarian with her own practice in East Nashville, 34 years old, divorced with no kids. We matched on the app and exchanged messages for a few days before deciding to meet for coffee. The moment I saw her, I knew she was different. She wasn't the most conventionally beautiful woman I had ever seen. She was short, with curly brown hair and freckles and a slightly crooked smile. But there was something about her that drew me in. A warmth, a genuineness, an ease with herself that I found immediately attractive. So, she said, settling into her chair with her latte, tell me your story. What brings a nice guy like you to the wild world of online dating? I laughed, the usual. Married for 9 years, didn't work out, now I'm trying to figure out what comes next. The usual? That doesn't sound usual to me. That sounds like a lot of pain and growth and courage. You think so? I do. Ending a marriage is hard. Starting over is harder. The fact that you're here, putting yourself out there, says something about who you are. What does it say? She smiled. That you're not afraid to take risks. That you believe in second chances. That you're looking for something real, not just something to fill the void. I was taken aback. No one had ever read me so accurately on a first date. What about you? I asked. What's your story? Similar to yours, I guess. Married in my mid-20s, divorced in my early 30s. We were college sweethearts, and we thought that was enough. Turns out, it wasn't. What happened? We grew in different directions. He wanted to move to New York and climb the corporate ladder. I wanted to stay here and build my practice. We tried long distance for a while, but it fell apart. No drama, no affair. We just weren't right for each other. That sounds very mature. It was, actually. We're still friends. We text on birthdays and holidays. I think we're both happier now than we ever were together. I thought about my own divorce. The betrayal, the anger, the complete destruction of trust. Could I ever be friends with Megan? Could I ever look back on our marriage without bitterness? Probably not, but maybe that was okay. Claire's story was her own. Mine was different. We talked for 2 hours, long past the time our coffees had gone cold. She told me about her work, about the dogs and cats and occasional exotic animal that came through her clinic. I told her about my job, about the challenges of engineering and the satisfaction of solving complex problems. When we finally got up to leave, Claire touched my arm. I had a really good time, Ryan. Would you want to do this again sometime? I would. Very much. Good. She smiled that crooked smile. I'll text you. She did. And so began the next chapter of my life. About a year after my divorce, I ran into Megan. It happened at a Whole Foods in Green Hill, of all places. I was in the produce section, picking out avocados, when I heard a voice behind. Ryan? I turned around, and there she was. She looked different, heavier, tired, with bags under her eyes, and a weariness in her posture that I didn't recognize. She was pushing a shopping cart with a car seat attachment, and in the car seat was a baby. A boy, about 3 months old, with dark hair and blue eyes. Megan, I said, I can't believe it's you. How are you? I didn't know how to answer that. How was I? I was good, actually. Better than I had been in years. I had a new apartment in Germantown, a job I loved, a girlfriend I was falling in love with. But standing here, in front of my ex-wife and her baby, all of that felt very far away. I'm fine, I said. You? I'm okay. It's been a lot. She glanced down at the baby. This is Oliver. Derek and I, we're trying to make it work. Good for you. It's not easy. He travels a lot for work, and I'm home with the baby most of the time. I'm not complaining. I wanted this. But it's harder than I expect. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt a flicker of sympathy. She looked exhausted, overwhelmed. But another part of me remembered everything she had done. The year of lies and rejection. And that sympathy faded quickly. I should go, I said. I have somewhere to be. Wait, Ryan, please, can we talk for a minute? I hesitated. Every instinct told me to walk away, to leave her with her baby and her regrets and get on with my life. But something in her eyes, a desperation, a need to be heard, made me stay. 5 minutes, I said. We moved to a quiet corner of the store, near the floral section. Megan parked the cart and turned to face me. I think about you all the time, she said. About what I did, how I hurt you. I know you probably hate me, and you have every right to, but I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. You've apologized before, Meg. I know, but it never feels like enough. I ruined everything. Our marriage, our life together. And for what? For a man who's never home. For a baby I'm raising by myself most of the time. For a life that looks nothing like what I imagined. Is that what you want me to say? That I forgive you? That it's okay? No. I don't expect forgiveness. I needed you to know that I understand now. I understand what I threw away, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I looked at her, this woman I had once loved, who had shared my bed, my dreams, my future. She was a stranger now, someone I barely recognized. I appreciate you saying that, I said carefully, but it doesn't change anything. What's done is done. We've both moved on. Have you? Moved on? Yes. I'm dating someone. Her name is Claire. She's kind and honest, and she makes me happy. Megan's face crumpled slightly. I'm glad. You deserve to be happy. So do you, Meg. I hope you find what you're looking for. I turned to leave, and then stopped. One more thing, I said. Stop calling yourself a victim. Stop acting like this happened to you. You made choices. Every day for a year, you made choices that led to this. Own that. It's the only way you'll ever be at peace. I walked away, leaving her standing there with her cart and her baby and her regrets. When I got to my car, I sat in the driver's seat for a long time, just breathing. The encounter had stirred up feelings I thought I had processed. Anger, sadness, a lingering sense of betrayal. But underneath all of that was something else, relief. I had said what I needed to say. I had faced my ex-wife, looked into her eyes, and realized that I was truly over. The hold she had on me, the guilt, the confusion, the wondering what I could have done differently, was finally broken. I was free. Claire and I got serious fast. Maybe it was because we were both in our mid-30s and knew what we wanted. Maybe it was because we had both been through divorces and understood the fragility of relationships. Or maybe it was just chemistry, that ineffable spark that makes you want to spend all your time with someone. We moved in together about 14 months after we started dating. I sold my apartment and moved into her place in East Nashville, a charming bungalow with a big backyard that she used for her 2 rescue dogs. It was smaller than what I was used to, but it felt like home the moment I walked through the door. Living with Claire was easy in a way that living with Megan never had been. Claire communicated openly about her needs and feelings. She didn't withdraw when she was upset or expect me to read her mind. When we disagreed, we talked it through. When one of us was having a hard day, the other one showed up. How is this so easy? I asked her one night as we her head on my chest. What do you mean? Us. This. I spent a year trying to figure out what I was doing wrong in my marriage, and now I'm in this relationship that just works. It makes me wonder if the problem was always her, not me. Claire was quiet. The problem wasn't her or you. The problem was the combination. You and Megan weren't right for each other. That doesn't mean there was something wrong with either of you. It just means you weren't compatible. But she cheated. She lied. How is that not something wrong with her? It is. She made terrible choices, but good people make terrible choices sometimes. It doesn't define who they are forever. You're very generous. I'm realistic. I was married to someone who wasn't right for me. He didn't cheat, but we still hurt each other. We still failed. The only way to move forward is to let go of blame and focus on what you want next. I thought about letting go of blame, about focusing on what I wanted next. What I wanted was this: Claire, the dogs, the bungalow in East Nashville, a life built on honest and trust, mutual respect. I love you, I said. I love you. A year later, proposed. It was nothing fancy, just the two of us at our favorite restaurant in the nations. A farm-to-table place called The Goat that we had been going to since our 3rd date. I had the ring in my pocket, a simple diamond on a white gold band, and when the moment felt right, I got down on one knee. Claire Henderson, I said, you've shown me what love can be. You've taught me that trust is possible, that honesty is sexy, that it's never too late to start over. Will you marry me? She started crying before I finished the question. Yes, she said. Yes, of course, yes. The other diners applauded as I slipped the ring on her finger. The waiter brought champagne. It was perfect. We got married 6 months later, in a small ceremony at her parents' farm in Columbia, Tennessee. Just family and close friends, about 40 people total. My parents were beaming with joy. My sister Rachel was my best woman. Claire's college roommates were her bridesmaids. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. We wrote our own vows, promising to love each other, to be honest with each other, to build a life together brick by brick. I spent years trying to be the perfect husband, I said in my vows, trying to figure out what I was doing wrong, trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed. With you, I don't have to try. I just have to show up, be myself, and love you. And that's the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. Claire wiped her eyes. I thought I knew what love was, she said in her vows. But you've shown me something deep. A partner based on trust. A friendship that doesn't fade. A passion that grows instead of withers. I can't wait to spend the rest of my life discovering all the other things you have to show me. We danced our first dance to Tennessee Whiskey by Chris Stapleton, a song that had been playing on the radio the night we first kissed. Claire's father gave a toast that made everyone cry. My mother hugged Claire and told her she was already part of the family. It was the wedding I had always wanted, simple, meaningful, surrounded by people who genuinely loved and supported us. And unlike my first marriage, I knew this one would last. It's been 5 years since my divorce from Megan, and 3 years since I married Claire. A lot has changed in that time. I got promoted to engineering director at Nissan, overseeing multiple teams and projects. Claire expanded her veterinary practice, opening a second location in Murfreesboro. We bought a house in Franklin, bigger than the bungalow, with room to grow, and we're talking about starting a family. Life is good, better than I ever imagined it could be after the devastation of my first marriage. But the past doesn't disappear just because the present is happy. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about Megan. I wonder how she's doing, whether she found the happiness she was looking. I wonder about Oliver, the little boy I saw in the grocery store, whether he knows anything about the circumstances of his parents' relationship. I heard through mutual friends that Megan and Derek split up about 2 years after I ran into her at Whole Foods. The details were vague, but apparently, Derek had his own affair. Karma, I suppose, though I don't take pleasure in. Megan moved back to Nashville and is raising Oliver on her own. She's working at a different company now, something in marketing. Sometimes I wonder if I should reach out. Not to reconcile, that ship has long since sailed, but just to check in, to let her know that I don't hate her, that I've forgiven her as much as I'm capable of, but I never do. Some doors are meant to stay closed. What I've learned from all of this, the betrayal, the divorce, the long road back to happiness, is that life doesn't follow the script you write for. I thought I knew how my story would go. Marry Megan, have kids, grow old together. That was the plan. But plans change, people change. Sometimes the person you love turns out to be someone you don't recognize. The question is, what do you do when that happens? You grieve, you get angry, you question everything, and then eventually, you pick yourself up and start over. You rebuild your life, piece by piece, until it looks like something you can be proud of. That's what I did. And I'm grateful every day for the second chance I was given. I'm grateful for Claire, who showed me what love is supposed to look like. For my family, who stood by me through the darkest days. For Dr. Mitchell, who helped me understand that I wasn't broken, just bruised. For the friends and colleagues who reminded me that I wasn't alone. And yes, in a strange way, I'm even grateful for Megan. Not for what she did, but for what it taught me. She showed me that I was capable of surviving the worst. That I could be knocked down and get back up. That my worth wasn't determined by whether someone else loved me. That last one took a long time to. For a year, lying next to a woman who didn't want me, I felt worthless. I thought there was something fundamentally wrong with me, something that made me unlovable. It wasn't true. It was never true. I was just with the wrong person. Now I'm with the right one, and I'm not going to make the same mistakes again. Last month, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Megan, the first direct communication we had in years. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the better of it. Dear Ryan, began. I don't know if you'll read this, or if you even want to hear from me. I understand if you don't, but I've been doing a lot of therapy, a lot of soul search, and my therapist suggested I write letters to the people I've hurt. You're at the top of that list. I'm not going to make excuses for what I did. I was selfish, dishonest, cruel. I took your love for granted and threw it away for something that turned out to be nothing. By the time I realized what I had lost, it was too late to fix it. I heard you got remarried. I hope you're happy, truly happy, in a way you never were with me. You deserve that. You always deserved better than what I gave you. Oliver is 4 now. He's the best thing in my life. Even though I sometimes look at him and see all the mistakes I made, I'm trying to be a good mother, to raise him to be kind and honest and brave. I don't always succeed, but I'm trying. I don't expect a response to this letter. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I think about you, that I remember what we had, and that I'm sorry for destroying it. I hope you find everything you're looking for, Ryan. And I hope, wherever you are, you know that you mattered. You always mattered. With regret and respect, Megan. I read the letter 3 times, then I showed it to Claire. What are you going to do? She asked. I don't know. How do you feel? I thought about it. How did I feel? Sad? Angry? Vindicated? I feel compassion, I said, surprising myself. She made terrible choices, but she's clearly suffered for, and she's trying to be better. That's something. Are you going to write back? I don't think so. Not because I'm angry, but because there's nothing left to say. We've both moved on. Reopening that door won't help either of us. Claire nodded. That sounds healthy. I hope so. That night, I lay in bed next to my wife, listening to her breathe, feeling her warmth beside me. I thought about all the nights I had spent in that other bed, with that other woman, feeling lonely and rejected and confused. And then I thought about how far I had come since then, the pain I had survived, the growth I had achieved, the life I had built. I was happy, truly, deeply, unreservedly happy. Not because everything had gone according to plan, but because I had learned that plans don't matter. What matters is how you respond when they fall apart. I pulled Claire close and kissed the top of her. "I love you," I whispered. "I love you too," she murmured, half asleep. Outside, the Nashville night was quiet. Inside, my heart was... I had survived the worst thing that ever happened to me, and I had come out the other side stronger, wiser, and more grateful than I had ever been. That was my story. Not the one I had planned, but the one I was given, and it turned out to be exactly the story